Imagine you've been assigned the greatest cold case in history. No DNA, no surveillance cameras, no photographs, no video recordings, only ancient documents, eyewitnesses, archaeological discoveries, and thousands of pieces of historical evidence scattered across 2 millennia. Would any serious historian simply throw up his hands and say, "It's too old, we can never know what happened"? Of course not. In fact, historians investigate ancient events every single day. No one doubts that Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon. No one doubts Alexander the Great conquered much of the known world. No one doubts if Socrates lived or that Augustus ruled Rome. Yet none of us personally witnessed these events. So how do we know that they happened? Because history operates differently from science. Science repeats experiments and history evaluates evidence. The question is never, can we repeat the event? The question is, what explanation best fits the evidence? That's exactly how we're going to investigate the resurrection. Not as preachers, not as skeptics, but as historians. How? By asking 5 questions every historian asks. Number 1, were there eyewitnesses? How early were the reports? Are there independent sources? Do enemies confirm any facts? And does archaeology support the setting? Every professional historian asks essentially the same questions. Let's examine them one by one. Question 1. Were there eyewitnesses? Eyewitness testimony has always been one of the strongest forms of evidence. It isn't perfect. People can misunderstand or even misremember details. People can forget. But eyewitnesses who independently agree on a central fact carry enormous historical weight. The New Testament repeatedly claims to preserve eyewitness testimony. Luke begins his gospel by saying that he carefully investigated everything from the eyewitnesses from the beginning. John concludes his gospel by saying, "This is the disciple which testifieth of these things." Peter later writes, "We have not followed cunningly devised fables, but were eyewitnesses of His majesty." These men weren't writing centuries later. They claim to have seen these events themselves. But eyewitnesses alone is not enough. Historians ask another question. Question 2. How early were the sources? Legends take time. Stories grow. Myths develop over generations. But the resurrection message appears astonishingly early. Consider what Paul writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, around 53 AD. He reminds the Corinthians of a message that he already delivered to them in around 50 AD. Most scholars, even many who reject Christianity, agree that Paul was quoting something earlier that was written within the time of the crucifixion. Remember, this is the same Paul who converted to Christianity 33 to 35 AD, just a few years after the resurrection. Listen carefully to what he said. Christ died for our sins according to the scriptures. He was buried. He rose again on the 3rd day according to the scriptures. And he was seen. Notice the sequence: death, burial, resurrection, and appearance. This isn't legend developing over centuries. It is what the earliest Christians proclaimed. Within only a few years of the crucifixion, the resurrection was already the center of the Christian preaching. That dramatically reduces the opportunity for legendary development. Question 3. Are there multiple independent sources? Suppose 4 newspapers independently report on the same event. Would that strengthen your confidence? Absolutely, right? The same principle applies to ancient history. The resurrection is reported by Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Paul, sermons and Acts, and is echoed throughout the New Testament. Each writer contributes different details. None tell the story in exactly the same way. Ironically, that is exactly what historians expect from genuine eyewitness testimony. If every account used identical wording, we would suspect collusion and collaboration. Instead, we find independent voices describing the same historical events in different perspectives. Question 4. What did the enemy say? Sometimes the strongest witness is your opponent. Imagine trying to prove something in a court of law, and the opposing attorney accidentally confirms a part of your case. That's exactly what we have with the case of the resurrection. The Jewish authorities never claimed that there was no tomb. They never claimed that the body is still there. Instead, according to Matthew's Gospel, They circulated another explanation. The disciples stole the body, they said. Think carefully about that, whether true or false. This explanation admits something remarkable, that the tomb was in fact empty. The debate was never whether the tomb contained Jesus. The debate centered on why it was empty. Enemy testimony often confirms facts the enemy never intended to admit. Question 5. Does archaeology support the story? Critics once claimed that many people mentioned in the Bible never existed at all. Then archaeology began speaking. The Pilate stone confirms Pontius Pilate. The pool of Bethsaida were discovered. The pool of Siloam was uncovered. Caiaphas and James's ossuaries were found, and many, many more. Ancient Jerusalem continues to reveal details remarkably consistent with the New Testament. Archaeology cannot prove the resurrection, simply because no shovel can uncover miracles. But archaeology can answer questions, important questions. Did the Gospel writers know first century Jerusalem and the surrounding areas? And did they believe that they saw the resurrected Jesus? Again and again, the answer has been yes. The historical setting continues to withstand scrutiny. So what's a reasonable detective's verdict? Imagine placing every evidence on a courtroom table. Eyewitness testimony, early creeds, multiple independent accounts, enemy attestation, archaeological confirmation. Individually, each piece is significant. Together, they form a cumulative case. That is how detectives solve cold cases. Rarely does one piece of evidence prove everything. Instead, many independent facts converge towards one conclusion. The resurrection deserves exactly the same careful investigation. But all that raises another question. Who actually claimed to see Jesus? Was there only a handful of grieving followers, or was there something altogether larger taking place? In the next chapter, we'll examine one of the most astonishing facts about the ancient history. Not one eyewitness, not 12, but hundreds of eyewitnesses were told, many of whom were still alive when the New Testament was first written down. Because if its claims are true, the evidence becomes even stronger.